Hey, what's happening, YouTube? What's going on, guys? You guys have tuned into Rules for Rebels, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about all the controversy stirred up by Carhartt yesterday. Yesterday, the Twitter sphere, whatever you want to call it, erupted over news that Carhartt is pressing forward with the Maccine Vandate. We got to talk a little bit differently here on YouTube to make sure our videos don't get like shadow banned. But Carhartt decided to press forward with the Maccine Vandate, even after the Supreme Court wound up shutting down OSHA's ability to enforce it. Now, the Supreme Court ruling has nothing to do with the ability of private businesses to make the decision and choose to impose their own. But the federal government cannot mandate that employers have to do this. And I thought this was an interesting story for a variety of reasons. This is probably going to be a fairly long, rambling video. And as always, love to hear your guys' opinions, love to hear your guys' takes on things. So feel free to drop your comments down below. Like I said, I'm going to be a little bit all over the place in today's video. I wanted to talk about kind of the thought process of why Carhartt did this. I thought this was an interesting one just because it's a business news story. It's interesting on that front. I know a lot of you guys own businesses or aspire to one day own a business, and you may be in charge of making decisions like this for your company or for your employees. So it's interesting from that front. I think kind of the logic behind why they decided to do this, and kind of taking into account, are we going to piss off one side of our customers? Are we going to piss off another side of our customers? How are our employees going to feel about this? How is this going to affect employee morale? And then also on a completely different tangent, I wanted to talk a little bit about the old YouTube. And what I mean about the old YouTube, you know, a lot of people are nostalgic for the old YouTube before it kind of became television, or before there was kind of a corporate takeover on YouTube. If you look at the YouTube Rewind from 2018, that was the most downvoted video of all time. Moving forward, we won't know what's the most downvoted video of all time, because YouTube took away the ability to downvote videos. And that's kind of another interesting topic. I realize I'm kind of all over the place here. Do you guys feel that you have less of a voice now, or more of a voice now than you've ever had in the past? You know, I was thinking about this the other day. Over the course of the past 2 years, with society and culture becoming so divided, I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but most comment sections on, you know, local newspaper sites, Yahoo News, etc., have been removed. And Yahoo even has like Yahoo has brought them back on some select non-controversial stories, but on most stories it still says, you know, to maintain polite dialogue, we've decided to remove comments. Well, you have it's not to maintain polite dialogue. There just is no dialogue anymore. But if you think about it, like, comments on news articles are no longer there. On YouTube, you used to have something called YouTube responses, where people could kind of respond back and forth, and it kind of gave everybody a voice and kind of added a bit more of kind of a social aspect to YouTube. That has gone away. And then the other big thing that I notice about YouTube is, like, you hear about a controversial story like this, and YouTube used to be a place where you could go hear average Joes like you and me kind of spout off our opinions about it. You know, to some people that's maybe not interesting, but I always find like other people's takes and opinions and how other people see the world to be pretty interesting. That's one of the reasons when we read news articles here, a lot of times I say, you know, I find the comment section to be more interesting than the actual news article oftentimes. But yeah, comment sections have gone away, and even if you search for a topic like this on YouTube, you're going to get 200 of the same news clip from national and local media, you know, a minute-and-a-half long news clip saying Carhartt has decided to do this, but nobody's actually sharing their opinion or delving into this or really discussing the topic. And so one kind of hack that I think one of you actually kind of turned me on to is, if you search something like Carhartt Maccine Vandate, obviously you would search the real word, and then you go up to the sort function in the top right, or the filter section, and filter by either newest or videos from today. You'll oftentimes be able to find these videos from smaller creators just kind of sharing their own opinions. And I would encourage you guys to do that if that's kind of something that you enjoyed about YouTube in years past, and you don't really like kind of the corporate, you know, mainstream news, kind of same stuff that you see on TV on YouTube. So that's a whole nother topic for discussion. Feel free to drop a comment down below about that. But let's talk about this actual Carhartt story. So Twitter was ablaze yesterday. People were going off on this. It seemed pretty evenly divided between half the people being like, yeah, this is great, I love to see a company that cares about its employees, and the other half of people like, I'm going to burn my Carhartt jacket. You know, I'm 30-year plumber. I've been wearing Carhartt my whole career. I'm never going to buy a Carhartt item ever again. Carhartt is kind of a, you know, iconic American brand. I believe a lot of their production has actually moved to Mexico, although right here you're looking at their flagship store in Detroit, and I think they maybe still make some stuff in like Detroit and Tennessee, although I believe a lot of the production has actually moved down to Mexico. Carhartt is traditionally like a work gear brand, but in recent years it's kind of taken off and become somewhat of a fad or kind of popular. You know, going off on a little bit more of a tangent, but over the past, I don't know, 20 years or so, we've seen kind of like rural culture and country music and stuff kind of enter the mainstream and become popular. I mean, if you think way back, didn't Nelly have a like a rap country song with some country artist? And then, you know, now you got Lil Nas with his Old Town Road, and it just, you know, you'll see, you know, cute Instagram girls wearing Carhartt stuff. Carhartt, and really just kind of the whole like culture of like, I don't know, country music, lifted trucks, etc., has gone kind of mainstream. And with that, we've seen Carhartt kind of grow in popularity or become somewhat of a fashion brand. You know, I've owned landscaping businesses over the years. I've done a little bit of construction work in years past. I've worn some Carhartt stuff. One thing I will say is over the years, I feel like Carhartt has gotten more expensive and the quality has kind of gone downhill. And just to kind of show how, at least in my world, I'm seeing Carhartt become a mainstream brand. One of, you know, we were doing our Christmas shopping a couple months ago, and my girlfriend's brother-in-law, who's an IT guy, a Carhartt jacket was the thing on his list that he wanted. So you have an IT guy, a guy who doesn't work outside. I mean, this is a guy who's not handy, doesn't like being outside, has no calluses on his hands, and this IT guy is asking for a Carhartt jacket. So I think that kind of goes to show Carhartt has become kind of a mainstream fashion brand. I saw kind of a funny meme on Twitter yesterday. It's kind of a cute Instagram-looking girl in a Carhartt hat, and the quote or the tagline on it is something like, you know, oh, now you're blue collar, sweetie. You know, there's a difference between, what was it? Oh, now you're blue collar. There's a difference between taking pipe and laying pipe, Stephanie. And kind of, you know, Stephanie is kind of like the Karen, the traditional Instagram white girl or whatever. But, you know, obviously Carhartt has become kind of a mainstream popular brand. And so it seems like Carhartt is kind of diving heavier into that. And we've seen this happen with a lot of other brands. Like if you look at brands like North Face and Patagonia, and even something like Dickies, which is like another work brand, at one time these were brands for kind of a specific niche of people, right? Like the North Face used to be for climbers and outdoors people. Same with Patagonia. Obviously years back, the North Face became kind of a fashion brand. I would say most people would probably agree that the quality of both these brands has kind of gone downhill over the year, especially Patagonia. I know I've read a lot of articles in the past about how Patagonia moved their factories, doesn't use the same high quality materials, the stitching and everything has kind of gone downhill. So as these brands kind of get away from their target audience and their niches, you know, they kind of tend to kind of lose who they are. And it seems like Carhartt is trying to do that, right? They're hoping that they can maintain their workers who buy Carhartt, but they also want to appeal to this younger crowd and hipper people and more urban people. And I think that's maybe what we're seeing with the Carhartt Maccine Vandate. So for anybody who hasn't been following the story about the Mexican beer cough, you know, Joe Biden a couple months back, what was it, in November, issued the OSHA mandate, or announced that he would be trying to get an OSHA mandate through that would require employers with 100 employees or more to require the vaccine. So that wound up happening back in November. It was kind of interesting that it was an emergency order, but the emergency took 2 or 3 months to roll out. It's kind of like if the Titanic were sinking and we were like, we need rescue boats. We need rescue boats here to save people. I hope they can show up in 2 months, right? 2 months from now, everybody's going to be dead. Doesn't seem like much of an emergency. But I thought it would be interesting to kind of examine, like, what was Carhartt thinking with this? So at this point, and I got to kind of be careful what I say here, but at this point, I mean, even the WHO, the CDC, studies out of Israel are all kind of showing, and I think it's pretty commonly accepted now, that the things in your arm, they don't prevent you from getting the Mexican beer cough. They don't prevent you from spreading the Mexican beer cough. So there really doesn't seem to be much of a societal benefit from pushing this. I know we've recently lowered the quarantine time from 10 days to 5 days. That seems to be less based on science and more based on Delta Airlines reaching out to the CDC and asking them to shorten it because the airline was facing disruption. So it's kind of interesting to me that we're so scared that we need everybody to get the thing in your arm, while at the same time we're sending flight attendants and also nurses back to work knowing that they are ill. So we're scared of people who aren't sick but might get sick, but we're not scared of people who are actually sick and are coming into work. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. And here's another interesting thing about Carhartt making this decision to do this. So basically any company, Carhartt included, who doesn't put forth a mandate, nobody's really going to say anything, right? Like I think it's kind of a non-story if you don't take action, and just kind of like, what I've noticed is a lot of companies who were talking about having a mandate, once the Supreme Court ruled, kind of walked it back. And they're like, we're still going to encourage people to get this thing. We'll pay you $200 to get the thing. We really think you should. We strongly recommend it. We want to provide a free workplace, but it's not our place to mandate this on you. And a lot of companies have kind of walked this back. So any company who doesn't move forward with a mandate likely isn't going to face any backlash. But when a company does move forward, it obviously is going to cause a stir. It is going to become a news story. And that's kind of what wound up happening on Twitter with this whole Carhartt story. Apparently, it was an internal email that was leaked that said they, despite the Supreme Court ruling, they are going to move forward with this. So Carhartt had to know that, like, if we do nothing, probably going to be quiet, no backlash. If we do something, this is going to become a story. They did something. They pushed forward with this. What's even more interesting about this is the type of people who wear Carhartt. This whole issue has become very political, very tribal, very divided. And I think it's kind of fair to say that blue-collar workers are probably less supportive of mandates than somebody who works for, Apple in San Francisco, right? So Carhartt's target audience, the people who wear Carhartt, probably aren't going to be fans of this. So it's kind of interesting to see them make this move. The mainstream media, definitely going to be a fan of this. Twitter and Reddit, definitely going to be a fan of this move. But your actual customer base probably isn't going to be crazy about this. And so, was this done to get some free press? Was this done because Carhartt truly believes this is a workplace danger and this is somehow going to save them money or make their workplace safer? One thing that's kind of interesting is, liberals or those on the left who traditionally, think corporations are selfish. They hate big pharma. Employers don't look out for employees, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now all of a sudden they're saying that, workplace safety, I love that an employer cares about their employees and kind of all this other stuff. Now they're loving big pharma. So it's just been kind of an interesting twist there. Like I said, Twitter was pretty divided. If we have time, maybe we'll head on over to Twitter and see what people kind of think about this story. I'd be curious to hear from you guys. What was Carhartt's thinking here? Like, do they really think this is a danger? And they think that this is somehow going to make things better? I can't really keep track of everything that's going on. Like, is it a 5-day quarantine for people who've had the thing in their arm, but a 10-day for people who haven't? In that case, I guess you can get your workers back in half the time should they wind up getting sick. The idea of people dying or being hospitalized and being out of work is, it's not impossible, but it's highly unlikely. We've seen pretty much anybody under 70 years old has well under a 1% death rate. Very few people are winding up in the hospital. In sheer numbers, when you're dealing with a population of hundreds of millions, yeah, there's going to be a decent amount of people, but statistical wise, there's not going to be a ton of people. And so when we look at working age people, probably people under 60, the chances of your employees dying or winding up in a hospital is incredibly low. So the only thing that I can really see from a benefit here is either the free press, appealing to kind of a younger generation, more of an urban crowd, who are going to like this move, or the idea that you get your workers back quicker if they're sick. But I can't really see a big societal benefit from moving forward with this. Let's hop into the article. Carhartt is requiring its workers to get vaccinated, and people have feelings. So this article comes to us from Detroit Metro Times. Despite the fact that the U.S. Supreme Court recently blocked the Biden administration from enforcing a Mexican beer cough Maccine Vandate for large employers, many are going ahead and requiring their workers to get vaccinated anyways. That includes Carhartt, the 133-year-old Michigan-based workwear company, beloved by both blue-collar workers and hipsters like. So you can kind of see like it's become kind of a hipster brand. I have seen a lot of people, and even in my personal life, I know a lot of people who used to work Carhartt who are moving over to Duluth Trading Company. I'm sure their brand, their brand's kind of fashionable as well. I'm sure their stuff will eventually probably wind up going down in quality. That just kind of seems to be how things go for most companies. But at least at this time, I would say Duluth Trading Company makes better quality goods than Carhartt. According to an email that was sent on Friday from CEO Mark Vandate to all Carhartt employees, the company is moving ahead with its mandatory vaccination policy, which went into effect on January 4th and requires all workers to be vaccinated by February 15th. We put workplace safety at the very top of our priority list, and the Supreme Court's recent ruling doesn't impact that core value, Vandate wrote, according to the leaked email. We in the medical community continue to believe vaccines are necessary to ensure a safe working environment for every associate and even perhaps their households. While we appreciate that there may be differing views, workplace safety is an area where we and the union that represents our associates cannot compromise. And this is another interesting thing. So some unions have been coming out kind of more on the side of what I would call freedom. The United States Postal Workers Union, the UAW, whatever, back when Biden first proposed this mandate for big workplaces and also federal workers, their union actually came out and said, we're not going to go along with this. And I believe they actually carved out an exemption for postal employees because of that, because, we can't have the mail system go down. So it's interesting to see some unions come out and say, we're not going to force our workers to do anything. And then you have other unions who are saying, for workplace safety and for our workers' safety, we are going to, fall on the side of mandating this. An unvaccinated workforce is both a people and a business risk that our company is unwilling to take. But here's where I'm confused. Like, what is the risk? So the people who are vaccinated can still get the Mexican beer cough, and they can still spread the Mexican beer cough. And in some ways, it might even be more risky because somebody who isn't vaccinated, they will probably know that they got sick, whereas somebody who is vaccinated, they may not even know they're sick. They may think they have allergies or the sniffles, as I'm sure anecdotally you guys have probably seen in your workplace or among your friends and family. So I would almost say they're more likely to be kind of these silent spreaders. But I guess I have a hard time wrapping my head around how this makes anybody safer. Vandate is the great-grandson of the company founder Hamilton Carhartt, who founded Carhartt in Detroit in 1889. Metro Times reached out to Carhartt to confirm the authenticity of the email. Carhartt made the decision to implement its own Maccine Vandate as part of our long-standing commitment to workplace safety, the company said in a statement. Our recent communication to employees was to reinforce that the Supreme Court ruling does not affect the mandate we put in place. The statement continued, Carhartt fully understands and respects the varying opinions on this topic, and we are aware some of our associates do not support this policy. However, we stand behind our decision because we believe vaccines are necessary to protect our workforce. One thing, I'll be curious to see how this ages. One thing we've seen with hospitals, airlines, and other businesses is they wind up moving forward with this, and then they eventually wind up seeing the consequences. There's been a lot of instances with some of the airlines where they put a mandate in place. Everybody says they're going to quit, and in the end, 0.02% of the workforce quits. In other industries, however, we've seen enough people quit that it actually disrupts the workforce. Right now, obviously, there's supply chain shortages, labor shortages going on. So will enough people quit that it actually winds up disrupting their production lines of their company? And if so, will they wind up walking this back? The letter began circulating on Twitter on Tuesday with people on both sides of the vaccination culture war chiming in. Look at Carhartt taking a stand to protect their workers and the American people, a tweet from an account called VaxedCat said. I messed up there and actually said the word. Thank you, Carhartt. Here's kind of an interesting thing. Back when the airlines were talking about this, I saw a lot of people, and this just kind of goes to show how tribal we are and how divided we are and how little kind of common sense and logic comes into play here. I saw a lot of people like, oh, if Southwest isn't going to mandate their pilots be vaccinated, I'm not going to fly with them. I don't want to fly with a pilot who might be spreading disease. But if you think about it, the pilot is 29 rows in front of you. He's in a sealed off, he's in a cockpit, but he's essentially in a sealed off room with separate airflow and separate air circulation in you. I mean, there's zero chance of you catching anything from the pilot. but there is no mandate from passengers. So it's very possible the guy sitting a half inch away from you on both your left and your right is not vaccinated, but you're concerned about the pilot who's 29 rows in front of you, locked away in a room. It just doesn't make a whole lot of logical sense. Here's the tweet. Here's the letter from Carhartt. Somebody else says, I have a lot of Carhartt stuff and I will definitely be buying more. An account called Max It Up wrote, companies that value their employees' safety and well-being will always win my money over companies that do not. And here's one thing that I've noticed. When I would see somebody saying, like, I wear Carhartt all the time and I'm going to go spend $300 on Carhartt today, if you actually look at their Twitter profile, I mean, these are people who don't do blue-collar work. These are people who, I mean, you can see from people posting pictures and how people are dressed and how people live. I highly doubt that a lot of these people are rocking Carhartt or are planning on buying Carhartt. Although, in fairness, even on the other side, even there are a lot of plumbers and tradesmen and things like that who are commenting on this. But I'm sure there's a lot of people also who say, I'm never going to buy Carhartt again, and they don't have a single Carhartt item in their house. They've never bought anything from Carhartt either. So that's another comment there. Others decided they must boycott the brand for being woke, whatever that means. Carhartt just put themselves on a going out of business notice. Someone who runs an account called Liberals Have No Clue at Dems Are Crap Bro. Do they realize their base is blue-collar, conservative, working class? Bye-bye Carhartt. Let's see. I was going to check out Twitter, but it seems like we're seeing a lot of this already. Hey, Carhartt, you and your new clientele can kiss my country ass. An account called American Barbie wrote. Let's see, at least one conservative voice of reason pointed out that Carhartt had the right to require its workers to get vaccinated. Carhartt is a private company. Carmine Sabia wrote on Twitter, they can mandate that you wear headbands if they want. If you do not want to adhere to their policies, quit. This is a free market. In the same way, I do not want the government mandating what we must do. We can not mandate what a business can do. And I agree with that, right? They are a private company, although everyone also has the ability to support companies that act in line with their own morals or their own worldview or their own thinking. So, some people may choose not to buy from Carhartt anymore. Other people may choose to support them. According to a Kentucky TV news station, some Carhartt workers protested the company's vaccination policy in November. I think it should be a choice. They think it should be a choice. A Carhartt factory worker named Lance Gary told the station, There's many aren't standing here that I think it should be a choice, but Carhartt has made it not our choice. They've made it mandatory. A November survey of more than 540 U.S. employers found that more than half of all respondents, or 57%, either require or plan to require the Mexican beer cough vaccination. Okay, maybe we'll head over to, I got 2-3 minutes to kill here. Maybe we'll head over to Twitter and check out some of the comments. Okay, so let's see. We got some news stories here, and then within there, we normally got some comments. I can't believe Carhartt is mandating a vaccination. Their customers are rural, patriotic folks by a majority. The CEO claims they don't care. Here's a Market Watch article. Let's just kind of see some people's takes and comments. Since they are willing to risk side effects or injury, do they accept liability for this? Thank you. Companies have to step it up and take care of people. We have always been a Carhartt family. So you can see people on both sides. Carhartt makes me more inclined to shop your products. Good on you. Oh, this hockey mom is buying much more for the hunters and college students in his family. Valentine's Day, thank you. Their marketing is working on you. I like Carhartt even more now. Very unfortunate position. The legal liability these corporations are subjecting themselves to is mind-blowing, out of touch with their customer base. Carhartt is on the wrong path. This has nothing to do with safety and everything to do with getting sued by union members. Great clothes, bad decision, good for CEO. Bad for the CEO. So many of the working types who wear such clothing are away from home, roughnecking it for weeks at a time. You think they care to be vaccinated or masked when they live more isolated than a majority of people. Majority may not boycott the product, but a good percent. And, I remember being at a marketing conference a couple years back, and there being kind of a discussion about, should your company get involved in cultural issues on social media? Should you take a stand on issues? Should you express your opinion? And, I think in years past, it would be kind of keep your mouth shut and, make your jackets or whatever it is you do. However, we are seeing people kind of want to know the founder's story behind the company. People want to know, more ins and outs of the company. And people actually do, especially the younger generations, actually do like when companies take stances on social issues. I think one of the stats that came out of that really sticks out to me, or that I really remember, is they said, if there's first off, you should only get involved in issues if it's kind of part of your company culture, part of your company heritage, part of your company image. A company like Tom's Shoes, they give shoes to poor people. So if an issue comes up about clean water or pollution or something like that, well, yeah, it would make sense for Tom's to stand up. But if you make, if you're Xbox, you probably want to keep your mouth shut about, societal issues or culture war issues. But one thing that they did say is, the people who are loyal to you are going to be much more loyal to you than the detractors, or the people who are upset with you are going to be upset with you. So ultimately, in the end, it's going to be a win as long as at least half of your customers kind of agree with or side with you on an issue. But I'd be curious to hear from you guys. Why do you think that Carhartt did this? What was the reasoning or logic behind it? Is this truly about workplace safety? Was this about getting some free press or getting into news? Was it about trying to appeal more to a new consumer base, which is hipsters, younger people, and more urban people? What was the thought process behind this decision? How do you feel about this? Would love to hear from you guys. Go ahead and drop a comment down below. If you guys enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. If you're not subscribed to the channel, click that subscribe button below. As always, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you on the next video. Later, guys.